The outer colony of Thresh's Hold had been managing for 14 months. Managing was the honest word, not thriving, not struggling in the dramatic sense, but the specific, patient quality of somewhere that was doing the thing that the thing required with the resources were. And that was, in the doing, producing the particular accumulated quality of something managed at the edge of its capacity for a duration that the capacity had not been designed for. 460 residents, the agricultural function, the communication relay that worked most of the time, the medical station with one qualified medic, the frontier settlement's specific, self-sufficient quality, the honest character of somewhere that understood it was at the margin and that had built, in the understanding, the quality of somewhere that did not require the institutional framework's full presence to function. The Varath sovereignty's expansion into the outer sector's western margin had been the 14 months context. The expansion had the specific, efficient quality of the Varath sovereignty's Queen Myra Valn conducting the western margin's consolidation, with the thoroughness that the consolidation required, the particular, methodical quality of someone who was very good at this, and who was, in the being very good at it, producing the consolidation's results with the competent, professional character of someone whose function was the function, and whose execution was the complete execution. The settlements in the western margin's path had made decisions. The settlements that had offered the tribute had fared better than the settlements that had not. This was the documented record, and the documented record was the record that the outer colony's administrative network communicated with the specific, practical quality of information that the outer colonies found relevant, and that the relevant information's distribution was the honest function of the network. Thresh's Hold's council had met. Cale Dorn had been at the meeting because the council's composition included the settlement's medical resource, and the settlement's medical resource was him. He was 36 years old, a former Accord frontier combat medic, 9 years across 4 frontier postings. The specific, unglamorous quality of someone who had done the medical function in the gap between what the institutional framework provided and what the actual conditions required. Not the decorated kind of service record. The kind that was present in the field medical reports and the functional documentation of someone who had been where the function was needed and had done the function with the quality the function required. He had retired 3 years ago. He had come to Thresh's Hold because the settlement had needed a medical resource and he had been available, and the sufficient reason had been the sufficient reason. He had been living quietly. The council's meeting had the specific, difficult quality of people who understood the situation accurately, and who were, in the understanding, in the particular space of the decision that the accurate understanding produced. The tribute's specific form, the documented record of what the consolidation had responded to, was the human tribute. The human tribute offered with the formal quality of the tribute protocol's specific character. The council had discussed who. The discussion had the honest, difficult quality of 40 minutes of people in the particular, compressed space of a decision they had not wanted to reach. At the 40-minute point, Cale said, "I will go." The council looked at him. "I am retired from the frontier service," he said. "I have no family at Thresh's Hold. The settlement's medical function can be performed by the secondary medical resource for the duration." He paused. "I will go." The council had accepted with the relieved quality of people who were out of the difficult space. Not comfortably out of it, but out of it with the honest weight of people who understood the cost, and who were, in the accepting, carrying the cost's weight without performing the not carrying. He had been prepared with the tribute's formal quality, the ceremonial arrangements, the formal documentation, the escort of the Varath sovereignty's Western campaign vessel's advance personnel who had arrived at Thresh's Hold with the professional quality of people performing the function, and who conducted him toward the campaign vessel with the complete quality the conducting required. He had thought, on the transport, about what the throne room would contain. He had thought about it with the 9 years quality, the specific, honest assessment of the situation, the available information processed with the methodical quality of someone who understood that the accurate picture was the foundation of the appropriate response. The Queen's reputation, the Western margin's consolidation's character, the tribute's formal protocols documented outcomes. He had not been afraid in the performed sense. He had been present in the honest quality of someone who was in the uncertain situation, and who was, in the being, giving the uncertain situation the honest attention it deserved. The throne room of the Varath sovereignty's Western campaign command vessel, had the specific, significant quality of a space built for the significant function. The operational quality of somewhere, where the significant decisions were made by someone who needed the space to support the decision-making rather than to announce the decision-maker. The throne was present in the Varath tradition's formal arrangement. The court's complete complement was present. The senior officials and the military command's representatives and the campaign vessel's senior personnel in the formal arrangement that the tribute's reception protocol required. He was conducted to the formal presentation position. He stood. Queen Myra Valn was at the throne. He assessed her with the 9 years quality, the specific, trained attention of someone who read the person with the full quality of the reading and who was, in the reading, building the complete picture of what the person communicated. She was 38 years old. The formal arrangement, the Queen's institutional presentation, the Varath characteristic, the complete quality of someone who had been the governance's complete context for 7 years, and who had, in the 7 years, built the particular quality of someone for whom the institutional function and the person were, in the public context, indistinguishable. She was not looking at him. She looked at him. Something happened in her face. He read it with the 9 years quality, and what he read was not the assessment quality, not the formal institutional quality of the Queen receiving the tribute with the professional attention the protocol required. The specific, involuntary quality of something that was not the managed response. The quality of someone who had seen something that the managed response was not sufficient for, and who was, in the seeing, present in the insufficiency before the management's reassertion. She said, quietly, in the Varath language, with the quality of something that had arrived before the intention could contain it. Impossible. The court was very still. Her face returned to the institutional quality. The management reasserted with the full capacity of 7 years of the governance's complete context. The specific, thorough quality of someone who had, in the instant of the word's escape, done the management's work with the full resource available. The court's senior officials read the Queen's face with the professional attention their function required and found the institutional quality present and complete. He had heard the word. He stood in the formal presentation position with the 9 years quality and the word's receipt and the room's stillness and the management's reassertion. And he was, in the standing, giving the complete picture the honest attention it deserved. The Queen said, in the formal register, "The tribute of Thresh's hold is received. The formal assessment will proceed according to the protocol's standard arrangement. The tribute will be conducted to the assessment quarters." The court received this with the professional quality of the court doing what the institutional framework required. He was conducted out. She did not look at him again as he left. He thought about the word. The assessment quarters had the functional quality of the campaign vessel's operational space, not the ceremonial quality, the honest, working quality of somewhere built for the function. He sat in the assessment quarters and he thought about the word with the 9 years quality. Impossible, said in the Varath language, said with the quality of something that had arrived before the intention could contain it. Said by the Varath sovereignty's Queen, the person who had built, in 7 years of the governance's complete context, the management quality that the institutional framework required, and whose management had been, in the instant of seeing him, insufficient. He thought about the Frontier Service's fourth posting, the outer margin engagement 7 years ago, the Keth Borders Secondary Theater, the engagement that the Accord's institutional records described with the managed language of something complicated that had been, in the complication, resolved at the specific cost the resolution required. He thought about the 3rd week. He had been in the field medical position, the forward position between the engagement's active line and the evacuation route, the specific, functional quality of the combat medic's placement in the operational structure. The 3rd week's engagement had produced the particular, compressed situation of the active line's compromise and the field medical position's exposure. The specific, honest quality of the gap between what the situation required and what the situation had provided. He had found her in the gap, not in the throne's quality, not the institutional quality, not the formal arrangement. A wounded Varath soldier in the field soldier's configuration, present in the gap with the specific, accumulated quality of someone who had been in the engagement's active conditions, and who was, in the gap's particular space, at the point where the conditions were no longer survivable without intervention. He had assessed her with the combat medic's trained quality. The wound was significant, the left side, the specific impact quality rather than the Frontier's accidental variety. The dehydration, the exposure, the accumulated quality of someone who had been in the conditions for longer than the conditions were designed for. He had done the medical function. Not the question of why she was in the gap's specific position, or what her presence communicated about the engagement's larger picture. The medical function. Because the medical function was the medical function, and the wounded person in the gap was the wounded person in the gap, and the sufficient reason was the sufficient reason. He had kept her alive through 11 hours. At the morning's approach, the Varath secondary forces had reached the gap's position with the specific, urgent quality of people who knew who they had found and who were, in the knowing, doing what the knowing required. The extraction had been thorough. The Field Medical Position's Combat Medics report had documented the standard notation: wounded Varath soldier, treatment provided, extracted by Varath secondary forces at the morning's approach, identity unknown. He had not known who she was. He had been reassigned. He had retired. He had come to Thresh's hold. He sat in the assessment quarters and he thought, she knows. He thought, the word was the recognition. The recognition was the 11 hours. The 11 hours were the gap and the night, and the function given with the quality the function required. He thought about what she was in now, the specific, difficult space of the decision the recognition had produced. The queen in the throne room with the court's complete attention. The whispered word already in the room's air. The court's proximate complement having heard it with the professional quality of people whose function was the reading of the significant thing. He thought about what the decision required. He thought about what the decision cost. He waited. The assessment official performed the formal protocol's function with the professional thoroughness of someone doing the assessment function. 3 hours. The biographical information, the service record, the skills inventory, the medical qualifications. Cale gave the information with the honest, direct quality of someone who understood that the assessment was the function and who was, in the understanding, giving the cooperation the function required. The assessment official compiled the formal document. The assessment official did not know what the throne room had contained. The court, meanwhile, was having its own experience. Not all of the court had heard the whispered word. The throne room's acoustic quality, and the word's quiet register had limited the hearing to the specific, proximate few who had been in the word's immediate vicinity. But the proximate few had heard. And the proximate few had the court's particular, professional quality of people who were very good at reading the significant thing, and who were, in the reading, building the picture of what the significant thing meant. The senior counsel found the queen at the 4th hour's conclusion. The senior counsel was 22 years in the function. The specific, accumulated quality of someone who had been reading the queen's situation for 22 years, and who had, in the 22 years, built the particular quality of someone whose reading was the complete reading. She received the senior counsel in the command vessel's private working space. The court's proximate complement noted the tribute's reception's specific quality, the senior counsel said. Yes, she said. The word, the senior counsel said. Yes, she said. The court's proximate complement's assessment is that the word communicated recognition, the senior counsel said. Yes, she said. The senior counsel was quiet for a moment. The tribute is a former Accord Frontier combat medic. 9 years of frontier service. 4th posting at the Keth Borders Secondary Theater 7 years ago. Yes, she said. 7 years ago, the senior counsel said. Yes, she said. The senior counsel looked at her with the 22 years quality. The 3rd week of the Keth border engagement, the senior counsel said carefully. The Queen was not in the command structure's official position during the 3rd week. The Queen's location during the 3rd week was not in the official record. No, she said, it was not. The Queen's location during the 3rd week is known to the Queen and to the people present at the location, the senior counsel said. Yes, she said. The tribute was present at a location, the senior counsel said. Yes, she said. The senior counsel was quiet. The court's proximate complement does not have the complete picture, the senior counsel said. The court will seek the complete picture. The court's professional quality requires it. Yes, she said, I know. The decision about what the complete picture's revelation produces, the senior counsel said, is the Queen's. Yes, she said. It is. The senior counsel looked at her for a long moment with the 22 years quality, the full, comprehensive reading of the person in the difficult space. The tribute's assessment is complete, the senior counsel said. The personal assessment is at the Queen's discretion. The protocol's standard arrangement is the private assessment. Yes, she said, I know the protocol. She looked at the working space, and the command vessel's operational quality, and the court's awareness, and the complete picture and the decision's weight. Yes, she said, I know. She came to the assessment quarters at the 7th hour. Not the formal procession, the specific, deliberate quality of someone who had chosen the register of the coming with the full awareness of the choice. The formal dress was present, the institutional quality was present. But the quality of the entering was the direct quality of someone who was in the space of the decision, and who was, in the entering, past the deliberation. He stood when she entered, she looked at him. He looked at her. The assessment quarters were quiet, she said in the Varath language. You heard the word. Yes, he said, in the Varath language, the functional quality of 9 years of frontier service. She looked at him. You know why I said it, she said. Yes, he said, I think I know. The Keth border, she said, the 3rd week. Yes, he said, the gap, she said, the field medical position. Yes, he said. She was quiet for a moment. You did not know who I was, she said. No, he said. You were a wounded Varath soldier in the gap. I was the combat medic. The function was the function. She looked at him. The night, she said, 11 hours. Yes, he said. The wound was significant. The 11 hours were the minimum the stabilization required. You kept me alive, she said. Yes, he said. That was the function. She looked at the assessment quarters wall. The function, she said. He looked at her. You said it was the function, she said. The wounded Varath soldier and the combat medic and the function. She looked at him. But I need you to understand what the function was in those 11 hours, what the function contained. He was quiet. Tell me, he said. She looked at the assessment quarters. I was not in an official position during the 3rd week, she said. The engagement at the Keth Border's secondary theater was the Sovereignty's intelligence structure's advanced assessment, the Queen's predecessor's requirement for the direct operational intelligence of the secondary theater's conditions before the command structure's formal engagement. I was conducting the advanced assessment. The cover was the field soldier's configuration. The field soldier's configuration, he said. Yes, she said. Not the succession's heir. I was not the succession's heir at that point. The Sovereignty's intelligence structure's senior field assessor. The field soldier's configuration was the configuration the assessment required. And the gap, he said. The engagement's 3rd week produced the active line's compromise, she said. The compromise reached the assessment position. The gap was where the compromise and the assessment position intersected. She paused. The wound was from the compromise's edge. I was in the gap's specific position when the field medical position's combat medic found me. He looked at her. The secondary forces at the morning's approach, he said, knew who they had found, she said. The senior officer knew the configuration and knew the person underneath it. The extraction was thorough. The field medical report documented the standard notation. She paused. The wounded Varath soldier's identity was not in the notation. No, he said, I did not know the identity. No, she said, you did not. He looked at her. The 7 years, he said, the succession. The Queen's predecessor's death was not anticipated at the 3rd week's engagement, she said. The succession occurred 14 months after. The formal process concluded. I became the Queen. She looked at the assessment quarters. 7 years of the governance's complete context. The Western Margins consolidation, the tribute's formal protocol, and Thresh's holds tribute. And the word in the throne room, he said. And the word in the throne room, she said. 7 years of the governance's complete context, and the management built with the full quality of someone who had made the institutional function the complete context. And the word arrived before the management could contain it. He looked at her. Because you recognized me, he said. Yes, she said. From the gap, he said. 11 hours in the gap 7 years ago. Yes, she said. She was quiet for a moment. I have thought about the 11 hours many times in the 7 years. Not continuously. The governance's complete context is the complete context. But the 11 hours have been present in the specific, recurring quality of something that the governance's complete context does not eliminate. He was quiet. She looked at him. The function, she said. You said it was the function, the sufficient reason, the wounded Varath soldier and the combat medic and the function because the function was the sufficient reason. She looked at him steadily. But in the 11 hours, the specific quality of someone who was doing the medical work with the full quality of the medical work, and who was, in the doing, simply present in the doing without the questions about why I was in the gap, or the calculation of what the treating might produce. That quality is not the function's standard quality. He looked at her. What is the function's standard quality? He said. The function performed, she said. The medical work done because the medical work is the required work and the required work is done. That is the standard quality. She looked at him. What the 11 hours contained was the function done with the quality of someone for whom the function was the sufficient reason, not the required reason, the sufficient reason. The wounded person was the wounded person and the function was the function, and those two facts were the complete picture. No additional calculation, no additional question. She paused. That quality is not the standard quality. That quality is the specific quality of a specific person. He looked at her. I understand the distinction, he said. I am not certain I have ever been able to explain it. No, she said. It is not the kind of quality that explains itself. It is the kind of quality that is present or not present. He was quiet for a moment. The decision, he said. The court, the proximate complement. The senior counsel's 22 years. Yes, she said. The complete picture's pursuit, he said. Yes, she said. The court's professional quality requires it. I was told this at the 4th hour. The revelation or the burial, he said. She looked at him. The burial's requirements, he said. Tell me. She looked at the assessment quarters. The formal tribute's standard resolution, she said. The assessed tribute assigned to the appropriate function within the campaign's operational structure. The court's proximate complement's curiosity managed with the institutional quality of something that does not receive the complete picture. The night in the gap remains the night in the gap, not the public record, not the Queen's history. The buried thing, and the revelation, he said. She was quiet for a long moment. The Sovereignty's Queen was in a field soldier's configuration at the Keth Borders Secondary Theater 7 years ago, and was wounded in the gap and kept alive through 11 hours by an Accord combat medic who did not know her identity, and who did the function because the function was the sufficient reason. She looked at the assessment quarters wall. The truth's political implications are specific. The court's assessment of the Queen's presence at the Keth border in the undocumented configuration, the complex result. The institutional management of the complex result requires the resource. Your authority, he said. My authority is not fragile, she said. 7 years of the Western Margins consolidation. The Sovereignty's institutional framework's complete support. The authority is not fragile. She paused. But the complex result is the complex result. He looked at her. The burial is easier, he said. Yes, she said. The burial is significantly easier. He looked at her for a long moment. What do you want to do, he said, not the strategic question, not the institutional question. The genuine question of someone who was in the private space, and who was, in the being, asking the person in front of him what the person wanted. She looked at him. The full quality, the Queen's quality and the underneath quality, the 7 years and the word in the throne room and the decision's weight, and the management's resource and the complex result, and the sufficient reason. I want, she said, to tell you something I have not told anyone in 7 years. He looked at her. In the gap, she said. The field soldier's configuration, the wound and the night and the 11 hours and the function given with the quality it was given. She paused. I knew at some point in the 11 hours who you were, not your name, your field medical designation. The Accord's combat medic at the forward position. I knew who you were in the function sense. And I knew, she found the word with the care of someone for whom the accurate word was the only word worth using. I knew that the function's quality, the sufficient reason, the no questions, the presence in the doing without the calculation, was the specific thing that the governance would require when the governance became the complete context. The specific quality that the governance required, and that the governance's institutional framework did not always find. He looked at her. You were thinking about the governance, he said. In the gap, in the 11 hours. I was thinking about surviving the night, she said. But at some point in the 11 hours, with the function being done with the quality it was being done, yes. I was thinking about what the quality meant, what it would mean. He looked at her. The governance, he said. The sovereignty, she said. The function at the scale of the sovereignty's complete context, the tribute's protocol and the court's management and the Western Margins consolidation and all of it. She looked at him. The function requires the sufficient reason at every scale. The sufficient reason at the sovereignty's scale is the same sufficient reason as the sufficient reason in the gap. He was quiet. The wounded person is the wounded person, he said. Yes, she said. And the function is the function, and those two facts are the complete picture. He looked at her. The decision, he said, the revelation or the burial. She looked at him. Kale, she said. His name in the personal register, not the tribute's formal designation, not the assessed person's institutional address. The name in the register of the gap and the night and the 11 hours and the sufficient reason. He looked at her. The decision is the revelation, she said. He was quiet. The court, he said. The court will have the complete picture, she said. The complex result will be the complex result. The managing will require the resource, and the resource will be applied. She looked at him. The Queen's authority is not fragile. No, he said. I did not think it was. She looked at him. The burial's cost, she said, is specific. The truth is that the 11 hours in the gap produced something that 7 years of the governance's complete context has not produced, and that the burial would require remaining absent. He looked at her. What did the 11 hours produce? He said. She looked at him with the full quality. Not only the Queen's quality, the underneath quality, both present simultaneously, both complete. The space, she said, where the who is not the first thing. The function given with the sufficient reason, the wounded person as the complete picture and the function as the complete response. She looked at him steadily. I have been the Queen for 7 years, the throne's occupant, the institutional framework's apex, the Western margins consolidation, the court and the senior council and the tribute's protocol. She paused. The space where the who is not the first thing, I have not been in that space in 7 years. He looked at her. The 11 hours were that space, he said. Yes, she said. In the gap, in the field soldier's configuration, with the combat medic who did not ask and did not calculate and was simply present in the function with the sufficient reason. She looked at him, that space. He was quiet for a moment. He looked at the assessment quarters and the campaign vessel's operational quality and the court and the complex result and the 7 years and the 11 hours and the decision made. Myra, he said. Her name in the Accord's personal register, not the Queen's formal designation, not the sovereignty's monarch's institutional address. The name in the register of the private space and the genuine question and the sufficient reason and the decision chosen. She looked at him. The tribute's assigned function, she said. The campaign vessel's senior medical function. The Western margins consolidation requires the medical capacity, and the medical capacity requires the quality that the function deserves. He looked at her. The institutional version, he said. Yes, she said, and the other version. Tell me the other version, he said. She looked at him with the full, complete quality, both qualities present and both complete, the Queen and the person, the 7 years and the 11 hours. The word before the management could contain it, and the revelation chosen and the complex result accepted. The other version, she said, is that the night in the gap produced the specific quality of someone who did the function with the sufficient reason, and who was, in the doing, the person the function required. She paused. And the governance requires that person, and she found the word with the careful quality of someone giving the accurate word the full weight it deserved. And the Queen requires that person. He looked at her. The governance or the Queen, he said. She looked at him. Both, she said. Yes, both. He looked at her for a long moment. The complex result, he said. Yes, she said. The complex result. The court's management, he said. Yes, he said. The senior counsel's 22 years, he said. Yes, he said. He looked at her. The sufficient reason, he said. She looked at him. Yes, she said. The sufficient reason. He looked at the assessment quarters, and the campaign vessel, and the court, and the tribute's formal protocol, and the Western margins consolidation, and the 7 years, and the 11 hours, and the gap, and the night, and the function given with the sufficient reason, and the word that had arrived before the management could contain it. The function, he said, at every scale. Yes, she said. The sufficient reason, he said, at every scale. Yes, she said. He looked at her. The complex result, he said, is manageable. Yes, she said, it is. The senior counsel's 22 years, he said, will manage it. Yes, she said, with the complete quality of 22 years. He looked at her. The space, he said, the space where the who is not the first thing. She looked at him. Yes, she said, that space, he said, does not require the gap's specific conditions. She looked at him. No, she said, it does not. The space, he said, is the quality of the person in it, not the location. She looked at him for a long time. Yes, she said, that is accurate. He looked at her. Then the space is present, he said. She looked at him. Yes, she said, it is. Outside the assessment quarters, the Varath Sovereignty's Western Campaign Command Vessel continued its operational function with the institutional quality of the significant vessel, doing what the significant vessel was built to do. The court, and the senior council, and the proximate complement's professional curiosity, and the formal protocol, and all of it doing what the governance required. Inside the assessment quarters, the combat medic who had kept a wounded Varath soldier alive through 11 hours in the gap 7 years ago, and the queen who had been that wounded Varath soldier, were in the specific. Genuine quality of the space that the gap and the night and the 11 hours and the word whispered before the management could contain it, and the decision chosen, and the revelation accepted, and the sufficient reason named had built. Not the burial, not the institutional version alone. The revelation, the complete picture, the sufficient reason, the space where the who was not the first thing. Which was, as the 9 years and the 7 years and the 11 hours and the gap and the night and the word and the decision and the complex result accepted, and the sufficient reason named had always been building toward. Exactly where the function led when it was done with the quality it deserved, and the sufficient reason it required. The complex result, manageable the space present, the sufficient reason real together.